And I think that is the way to do it, versus saying, look, let's just book all of this to, let's say, much junior developers who may or may not understand much about the fundamentals of writing code, and then this generating, let's say, large amounts of code that are ultimately, and people are not going to be able to actually understand how to debug it if something goes wrong. Imagine a scenario if you are writing software in a bank, and are you going to risk a junior developer who does not understand how to fix something that's been generated by an AI model, especially when it could be prone to hallucinations? So I think there's a lot of fundamental, human judgment that needs to be employed here to make sure that we responsibly harness the power of AI while using all its benefits at the same time.
And human judgment is at the heart of what Stack Overflow does. You talk about offering knowledge as a service, but it's person to person. It's the human being asking the question. And it has to be said, Stack Overflow has a certain ambivalence in your thinking about generative AI. There was a bit of a fight with some of your moderators a year or two ago over whether you could use generative AI to answer questions. How do you see all this now, looking back over that? Should you have taken a position?
Yeah, no, I think for us, it is, we manage 100 million people. And if you look at the population of the UAE, it's a few million people, right? So I almost think of this as like we have a community that is actually like a small country. So when you think about what it takes to run a small country, you have to listen to your people, you have to be transparent about the change that's happening, you've got to get them engaged in being part of the change, for them to be brought along in terms of how you actually empower them to actually use these tools in the future. So all that is complex. It's dealing with people, it's dealing with people's emotions, it's dealing with people's insecurities about jobs and all these sort of things that are actually, and especially with the pace that we've experienced in this industry for the past 24 months, it is not surprising that even for the most erudite of folks, it is hard to keep up with the number of developments that are happening minute by minute, right? I'm sure you had to read up about OpenAI's announcement from last night before we came on here to make sure that the DeepSeek announcement was actually so relevant to talk about. But that's just the nature of the game. So I think for a lot of folks who are in the community, it is quite difficult for them to keep up. So I have a lot of deep empathy for them. So absolutely, I think when we started, we said we want to, because ultimately our corpus of information on our data, which is now being used by all the AI companies because it's so pure and so accurate, it is not a forum, it's not it's not just people having an opinion, it's actually literally the right answer. That's come at a very, very high standard that we have employed. We do not want to pollute that by just saying, let's just generate a bunch of content that may be wrong. So we had to take the position back in the day to say no AI on the site early on, but then over time, as we said, what problems do we have? Let's use AI to solve those problems versus just sort of taking kind of a hammer, and a nail approach, if you will, on everything that's AI. So we were very specific about, for example, allowing natural language, people to be able to ask natural language questions anywhere they were, whether they were in Slack or in their IDE where they write code. We want to surface now our Stack Overflow content in a knowledge as a service way so that they have access through this phenomenal technology by not even asking a perfect question, somewhat an okay question, but they get the right answer and they don't get shut out. But the main point, last point I would say is that they now, we really believe that there needs to be an authentic place for humans to engage with other humans and experts. And yes, you should rely on AI, no doubt, but where are you going to go for the world's best JavaScript programmer to engage with you? Or where are you going to go to make sure that what you're doing is correct? Even the AI models, wouldn't you want the models to spit out an output that is attributed back to the source content from where it came from, so you can trust the content coming out? Only about 40% of our community, which is 100 million people, so it's a good sample set, trusts what's coming out of AI models, even today. So there's a high level of skepticism about, should I trust my job about this? Because you can't blame the tool. If you push code into production in your bank and it came from an AI model, it is on you if something broke. So you better be absolutely sure that it's correct. And so to do that, you need human-to-human feedback loops incorporated while you're using this really phenomenal power tool.
But how do you keep Stack Overflow relevant when the behavior of a lot of your users is to go with their question to a generative AI? How do you get them coming back here? I mean, there's suggestions that the number of questions has been declining for 7 or 8 years. How do you ensure that Stack Overflow has a future in the context in which the AI is there to answer in a fairly persuasive way all sorts of granular developer questions?
Yeah, a great question. So for us, it's all about making sure, number one, that we serve our users wherever they are. So this whole notion of knowledge as a service is, if you're spending time in AI tools, no problem. We will surface Stack Overflow content in those AI tools. So we've now done this with Google Gemini, we've done this with Google GitHub Copilot, we will do this with other AI tools that you're going to be aware of. And so the idea is to go wherever the developer is. At the same time, we actually don't mind that some of these questions have actually declined over time, because the questions that have gone away have actually been the repeat questions. They've been the simple questions. And again, the objective of the North Star of the site back when it was created by our founders, Joel Spolsky and Jeff Atwood back in 2008, was all about making sure this was a library of the most accurate technology knowledge. It was less about, let's be a forum to ask the same question 16 times. But you can ask the same question 16 times to ChatGPT or an AI tool. It's not going to be worried or irritated, because it's just saying it's going to answer the same question, back in a friendly way. So we want to incorporate, the second point is we want to incorporate AI into our site so that people don't get shut out by engaging on the site, even if it's a duplicate question or if it's been asked before, if it's a simple question. So we've incorporated through our launch of Overflow AI functionality onto the site. And then thirdly, our relevance point is to partner with all the AI companies, as I mentioned, with Google, OpenAI, all the cloud providers, to make sure that we have, they license our data that we're generating, and as the information is being produced on the site, it is able to serve up the latest and greatest information for things like pre-training, for things like RAG and indexing, and all sorts of use cases that they find useful. So again, we're hoping to do something similar here in the UAE.
So, conference, you have access to the boss of the world's largest developer community, unless a teenager in Shenzhen has just created a bigger one in the last hour or so. What would you like to ask Prashant? If you have a question, just raise your hand and the microphone will find you.
We only have time for one question, so let it be you.
So thank you. It's a great privilege as an ecosystem designer to hear from the most open community in the world. Okay. I want to cheat and understand. You are studying the behavior of communities all around the world. And we know that socially they are going to be one of the most powerful factors in the future of the world. What do you think will change in terms of the stance of companies like you from not only being a platform, but having a more active behavior in terms of communities? I mean, focusing on different purposes for the communities or different experiences that can make the world a little bit more fair.
It's a wonderful question. So thank you so much for it, and my pleasure. It's one of the things that we are actually exploring, which is not yet fully in the public realm, is that exactly to your point, we have discovered that the audiences that we serve previously were focused on more professional programmers because of the notion of creating this very accurate knowledge base. Because who's going to answer this question that somebody had around the world? And that was the goal. Now we're noticing exactly the same point that you made, which is that there's an absolute need for humans to connect with other humans. Because when we talk about some of the unhealthy behaviors from earlier around being too close to your own digital pets, I think people are really, really looking for human-to-human interaction on a site like ours. So how do we do that? We want to give people the ability to engage through multiple, let's call them highways. So right now, our highway, by the way, we've got beautiful highways in the UAE. I've never seen such beautiful roads, including in the US. But I would say the multiple highways is, number one, the slow lane is actually the Q&A lane, which we have, which is because of the friction that we've established and create a high quality answer, it is quite slow. But then we want to establish multiple other lanes, including, let's say, a discussion or a forum type engagement where you are actually engaging a lot faster. It's more of a conversation. And then we also have deeply buried in the site, which we plan to actually elevate up through chat, where imagine if you had a question, why are you actually engaging with an AI tool, and you wanted to double check that with the world's best JavaScript programmer. And by the way, that JavaScript programmer has 1 million points on Stack Overflow. You know that that's an expert on the topic. and his answers have been attributed back into all the AI content we've generated or empowered. So imagine if you could have multiple form factors, not only through the highways, but also not only Q&A, but also other ways in which you can engage. And I have to stop there to not reveal too much in terms of all the other ways in which the younger generation likes to engage, early programmers like to engage. Not all of them want just text Q&A. They want other ways in which they can learn so that they can develop and be great programmers in the long run. So
I'm guessing it's a dating app, but you don't have to tell us. Prashant,
maybe not that.
CEO of Stack Overflow, thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you very much to David and Prashant from Stack Overflow, who I suspect has never had to try turning something off and on again. He could just ask one of his many, many community people. Right, David, you can't escape yet, I'm afraid. Please make yourself even more comfortable. We have another guest for you. From Essex, please welcome Alan, the